Hey guys, Prowl1701 here, and today we're going to talk about some First Doctor. And my question is what do you personally think is the First Doctor's weakest season? I think this is a tricky question because you have to take the missing episodes into account, especially with Season 3, which of the 3 seasons is the only one that's heavily affected by them. Season 2, of course, being the least affected of all the 60 seasons, and Season 1 not being overly affected that bad outside of Marco Polo, really. And then Season 3, which is heavily affected, with only 3 of its 10 stories being completely intact with original surviving episodes, though we are getting closer to getting that done with the animations, though that also depends on what you think of those particular animations overall. This is a hard one. Like, immediately I know it's not Season 2, because I think Season 2 is Hartnell's strongest season, and my second favorite season of the 60s, my favorite being Season 4. I think Season 2 is extremely strong. It does help that it's almost completely intact, with only episodes 2 and 4 of The Crusade missing, which is a shame because The Crusade is still a fantastic story, hardly surprising. It's David Whittaker. David Whittaker, I'm very much beginning to believe that David Whittaker is just one of the GOAT Doctor Who writers, like knocking on the door with like Uncle Terrence and Malcolm Hulke and of course Bob Holmes. David Whittaker just, I don't know if David Whittaker has ever written a bad Doctor Who story, to be honest. I love The Crusade. I wish it was intact. But it being such a strong season, with it really only having, of the 9 stories that make up this season, I'd only call 2 of them weak. One being the Web Planet, which as I always point out when I talk about the Web Planet, I will always respect the ambition behind that story. The fact that they had a dream to make that work, and they tried. The budget wasn't there. Some of the stuff they pull off well. I love the Zarbi outfits. And the Menoptera outfits are okay. They're not great, but they're okay. And some of the set design is really good. There are some things there that, for me personally, they pull off. Unfortunately, there's a lot they don't. Some of the set design is not good. The Vaseline over the camera, which they did to give it kind of an otherworldly look, instead just looks like a smeared camera. And the Grub outfits look really bad. The final antagonist looks terrible. And it plods along at 6 parts. It really just needed to be 4 parts. Also, the Zarbi noise just gets progressively more and more irritating over time. Like the first episode, it wasn't bothering me, but as the story wore on, it just became more irritating. I love the ambition. It's just a shame that they couldn't pull that off with the budget at the time, and there's no reason it should have been a 6-parter other than to fill a time slot. And then the Chase, which I know people's opinion on the Chase is mixed. Some people like it, some people don't. I don't. I think its bookending episodes are both very good. I love episode 1 and episode 6. And I like parts of episode 3, I think, and parts of episode 5. However, episode 2 doesn't do much for me. Parts of 3, parts of 5, and episode 4 is just dreadful. Possibly the single worst episode of classic Doctor Who. Episode 4 just does nothing for me. I don't really get into the Chase overall. Great departure for Ian and Barbara, though. Definitely one of the best 60s companion departures. And then, of course, you have Planet of the Giants, which is great. Dalek Invasion of Time, which is great. The Rescue, which is phenomenally good and very underrated. The Romans, which is phenomenally good and very underrated. But the first time Doctor Who really did comedy, and it works beautifully. The guest cast, the main cast, the sets, the costumes. Love the Romans. And then, of course, I've talked about The Crusade already. You have the Space Museum, which is underrated. I agree that episode 1 is the best episode. Episode 1 is extremely good, has a lot of really neat ideas, and keeps you wondering what's going on. After that, it kind of just turns into standard Doctor Who fare. Nothing to write home about, but I don't think it's bad. I don't think the other episodes... Is it a 4-part? I can't remember if the Space Museum is a 4-parter or a 6-parter. I've only watched it the one time. I think it's 4 parts. And the other episodes are fine. They're fine. They're enjoyable. They're kind of middle of the road, generic Doctor Who fare. Nothing to write home about, but not bad. I still enjoy, who Who cannot love Hartnell and the Dalek? Exterminate! And the scene when the Doctor ties them up, like you see him standing over him and he's acting like he's unconscious, and you see him that. And then the next scene, you find out he's subdued one of the guys and tied him up. I love that. There's some great stuff going on in Space Museum, even the other episodes besides episode 1. And then the Time Meddler, which is great. I love the Time Meddler. Possibly my favorite Hartnell story. Peter Buttersworth is great. Him and Hartnell are great. Love the set design. A lot of good stuff. What do you think it is? A space helmet for a cow? So I definitely think season 2 is the strongest. It gets harder between 1 and 3. Because if I had to say the weakest, I would probably say season 3. But the main reason I would say that is the missing episodes, because it is so affected by missing episodes. Because I think if I'm able to ignore missing episodes and judge them on the strength of the stories, that's close. That's close. I think I might put season 3 above season 1. Because season 1 is the first season. The show is finding its way. And make no bones about it, season 1 is good. Season 1 is good. It has some highs, some lows. Not really that bad of lows. But it's good. Whereas in season 3 also is pretty consistently good. A couple lows. It's really close. But factoring in the missing episodes, I have to put season 1 above season 3. Season 1, I like An Unearthly Child. All 4 parts, much like the Space Museum, episode 1 is the best. That's one of the best first episodes of a TV show probably ever. It is phenomenal. It does a great job in its short run time of introducing you to the concepts of the show, which I like. But I think the other 3 episodes are good. Again, kind of middle of the road, maybe not the most interesting, but they're fine. They're okay. The Daleks, I think the Daleks is good if you can look at it from the perspective of 1 episode a week for 7 weeks. Trying to marathon the Daleks all at once makes it drag. I've complained about the Daleks a lot on this channel. I prefer the color version of it. Honestly, the edited down one that Benjamin Cook did. I think Benjamin Cook did a great job editing that. But if I was to sit down and try watching the Daleks over the span of even a week, I think I would maybe have more of an appreciation for it. It's an impressive first story to introduce the Daleks. Even if it's not a high point for me, I think for its time, it establishes the Daleks as a dangerous threat, and I like that. Edge of Destruction doesn't do the most for me, but I love the ending. And if you can stick the landing, you're winning some points with Prowl. So I do like that. I do like the ending, even though I don't like having to watch through the 2-parter to get to the ending. Because even at 2 parts, it just feels like it drags to me. Marco Polo, I'm currently going through right now. I've watched the first 4 episodes. It also, I think it being missing hurts it a little bit. I love the reconstruction. I love the sets for the story. I love the costumes for the story. And I'm liking the guest cast a lot. It does feel like it's plodding along at 7 episodes. Like I'm kind of doing episodic reviews for each part, which I'll combine into one big video for my patrons, and then I'll just do a regular review for the YouTube channel. But, you know, a lot of the parts are short. Like each part might just be 3 minutes long because there's just not a lot to talk about going on in each individual part. It does feel stretched out a little bit, but I'm enjoying it so far. I love the Keys of Marinus. I've talked about that before. I like how each episode of the Keys of Marinus feels kind of like its own adventure because each one's taking place in drastically different places and different events going on around it. I like the Aztecs. I think it's a little overrated, but I like the Aztecs. It's good without being great, in my opinion, or maybe easing into great without being masterpiece. Very good. Good sets, good costumes, and Jacqueline Hill is getting a lot of good stuff to do in it. The Sensorites I enjoyed well enough on a first watch. I don't know how well it'll hold up on a rewatch. I'm going to be really interested to see how I feel about the Sensorites on a rewatch. Not the most interesting story, but I didn't think it was bad. And then, of course, the Reign of Terror I love. Great season finale. Love the Reign of Terror. Whereas season 3... Again, I think I could argue it would be my personal least favorite and arguably the weakest, especially factoring in missing episodes. You have Galaxy 4, which I like. And the animation for it's good. I have nitpicks with it, like I don't like that the real encampment has been changed so much from the original production. It makes it look like you're in the real ship, which you're not. You're in the encampment connected to the ship. So I don't like that change. And I don't like the fact that the animation doesn't match the surviving episode. I found that if I'm watching Galaxy 4, I either have to watch the surviving episode 3 and the surviving clip from episode 1, which is about 6 minutes long. I have to watch that with the reconstruction, which I enjoy. I love the reconstruction for Galaxy 4, let me tell you. Or I have to watch all 4 episodes animated, which is also a joy to watch. I usually don't watch them in black and white, though. If I'm watching the animation, I'll probably just watch it in color because the colors really pop on it. But I do love the story. I think the story is really, really good. Then you have Mission to the Unknown, which is great. It's a great lead into Dalek's Master Plan, arguably even better than Dalek's Master Plan. I love the little Varden plants or whatever they're called. They're fascinating to me. I loved the Yukon or U-Clan, whatever it was. The reconstruction or the remake they did of it was very good. I've also watched Levine's animation for it, which I thought was also really good. Very good story, very fast, very scary, actually. There's a good horror element to it, you know, of turning into one of those cactus, but it's terrifying. One of my biggest problems with Dalek's Master Plan, aside from the fact Feast of Stevens sucks, and that it's way too long at really 11 parts, but we'll call it 12 parts, is the fact that the Vargan plants just kind of disappear. Everybody's stumbling through the forest so haphazardly, barely into Dalek's Master Plan, whereas I like Mission to the Unknown. You got to watch every move because you don't want to stick those things. I like that better. The novelization of Dalek's Master Plan does better at explaining why they're not there, that I don't think the TV episode goes as in depth on. Then we have the Myth Makers, which is okay. The Myth Makers isn't the best for me, possibly due to some really bad incidental music. You guys remember my reaction to the incidental music, right? Oh, that incidental music. That's probably the most used clip from a video I have ever had on the channel, because anytime I talk about the Myth Makers, I pretty much have to use that clip. That music's terrible. Probably the worst incidental music in Doctor Who. It's just weird. But the story is all right. I like the guy playing Odysseus. I like the guy playing King Prem. And I like the girlfriend playing, was it Cassiopeia or whatever her name is? The one who's the seer. You know, there's a good guest cast in it. It's hard to watch it as a recon. Also, the audio is not the best. I think that's one of the reasons it might not have been animated yet, is the audio isn't the best. It's not the best companion departure for Vicky. I mean, it's not the worst companion departure, but it's not a good one either. I think Vicky deserved better. And just kind of maybe right below middle of the road, close to middle of the road without being middle of the road. I don't get into Myth Makers a lot. Maybe if some of it gets found one day, I might appreciate it more. Then you have Dalek's Master Plan, which is just bloated. I mean, it's not all bad. And to be fair, the surviving episodes are enjoyable, maybe if more of it survived. I love Nicholas Courtney as Brett Vaughn. I love Jean Marsh as his sister, whose name is escaping me. It's Sarah Kingdom. She's great in it. I love having Peter Buttersworth back as the monk. There's a lot of things I like about this story. I think it's just, one, the Feast of Stephen is god-awful. And the fact that you have to endure so much of it as recons. Not the best recons in the world either. That just makes it hard to deal with. The 3 surviving episodes are good, but I don't want to rewatch Dalek's Master Plan unless they animate it. They really need to animate it to get me to go through that again. The Massacre I enjoyed, but the novelization is so much better. And I read the novelization first. So going from the novelization to the TV version is like... It's like watching a regular version of a Classic Who story and then going on YouTube and watching one of those 30-minute cut-downs they did a few years back. Remember before they started posting the full stories on YouTube, like 2 or 3 years ago? They were doing those little 30-minute cuts of the 4-parters. And so much of it's cut out that you know it doesn't feel the same. Or even watching like a Tales of the Tardis cut-down of a story, like Pyramids of Mars or Earthshock. And maybe it's enjoyable, but it's not as good as just watching the full version of the story. And that's pretty much how it feels. The TV version feels like the cut down version of the story, whereas the novelization feels like the full story. There's just so much more there. So the TV version's fine. I didn't mind it. I actually enjoyed the reconstruction with the telesnaps far more than I thought I would, considering there are no telesnaps. This production stills and created telesnaps. That I found it as enjoyable as I did. Plus, I do love the speech Hartnell gives at the end of part 4. It is a phenomenal speech. I wish that scene existed. If not the whole episode, the scene existed for that, because it's really, really good. But the novelization's a fantastic read. And then you have The Ark, which I love. The Ark is an underrated story that does not get talked about enough, with a great twist halfway through that I feel like doesn't get appreciated. Then you have The Gunfighters, which you know I'm not a big fan of. Has a couple things I like. The guy playing Doc Holliday is great. But for the most part, don't really care for it. Do not like the Ballad of Johnny Ringo. You guys know that. Maybe if they did a special edition where they took the song out or only sang it like once, I could tolerate it more. But I'm not a big fan of The Gunfighters. I've never seen The Savages. I'm looking forward to that. And then The War Machines is great. It's a good season finale. We really see Hartnell shine in The War Machines. Yeah, Dodo has a bad exit. But Ben and Polly get a great introduction. Also, the only complete Ben and Polly story with like full surviving episodes. The only one. That's kind of a shame, actually. And Hartnell has a great performance in it. So while season 3 and season 1 have their ups and downs, I feel like season 3 has more lows than season 1. I count Dalek's Master Plan as one of the lows, probably due to the missing episodes. But it also has its highs. There are definitely some good things in season 3. Like, all of the 60 seasons are good. I mean, it's hard for me to even figure out when Classic Who had its first, what I'd call, bad season. I don't even know if Classic Doctor Who has any just flat-out bad seasons. Season 23 would probably be the weakest for me. I don't know if I'd call it bad. Maybe borderline. But then again, I still like Mysterious Planet and Terror of the Vervoids. And Ultimate Foes is okay. It's really just Mind Warp that I just really don't care for. So yeah, especially all the 60s seasons. So yeah, I would say if I was ranking Hartnell's, I would have his best season as season 2. And then his second best would probably be season 1, even if the Doctor himself as a character is written better in season 3 than he is in season 1. But even in season 1, he's coming around. He is coming around very early. Even honestly, by the end of, you really start to see it by the end of Edge of Destruction. Even though he's still a bit crotchety in Marco Polo, which I'm having a lot of fun with in that watch through, I'll be honest. I love the fact I love when he gets indignant in Marco Polo. I love that. So while I think he's still characterized better in season 3, I think the quality of stories, even if I tried to leave missing episodes out of it, I think the quality of stories is slightly better. The hit-to-miss ratio is slightly better in season 1 over season 3. But when you factor in missing episodes, season 1 definitely comes in second place. With season 3, while still being a good season, make no bones about it, I would still call his weakest overall. Because I consider season 4 more of a Troughton season, since Hartnell only has 2 stories. And I think he has 2 good stories. I like 10th Planet. I love The Smugglers. I love The Smugglers more than I do 10th Planet. So that's my thoughts on it. I want to know what you think of this video and which one you think is Hartnell's weakest season and how you would rank his 3 seasons. Comment down below and let's talk about it. Don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button as well. I also have a Patreon if you would like to support me on that. There is a link to that down there as well. I want to give a shout out to some of my top tier patrons. Sam Venning, Colin Coney, Finn Perkins, and Paul Gibbons. I appreciate their support as I do the support of all of my patrons and my YouTube members. It's very much appreciated. I also have a P.O. box if there's anything you'd like to send me to look at and review. I love getting fan mail. That's how I've gotten most of my standard edition sets. Simon and Colin have both done a really good job, a very generous job. I shouldn't say job. Wow, that comes across as rude, doesn't it? Okay, I can edit all that out. I'm not gonna edit that out. It's funny, but they've been very supportive of the channel. Simon has sent several. Colin has also sent one as well, which I appreciate. And I've purchased some of them myself, you know, doing my part naturally. But I very much appreciate that. I'd love to get some more of these standard editions. if anyone wants to send one. I also have links to my Amazon wish list up there, links to my Amazon UK wish list up there as well if you want to check those out. Most importantly, thank you for watching.